Karina, I haven't covered the second part, so just yeah. So, and the second part that I marked here is actually what I am doing. So it's using social media textual data. So this is basically what natural language processing is about. That all what we use our AI on is just textual data. And for me in particular, I mean, I believe there are lots of interesting portion to that. Why? So first of all, because we have plenty of data. Just imagine how many texts we have, how many posts, how many channels we have in Telegram, right? In fact, here you can see a bunch of screenshots that I did, that I collected from multiple reputable news sources that they are actually saying that Telegram became, one of the major source for information during the war. And second, of course, a language can include some other features. For example, we can derive some emotions that are coming from the language, right? So text, therefore, here have some other interesting features. And finally, from the text, not from the image, but from the text, we can often derive the perspective or the side that with which the author of this text actually agreed on. For example, pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian or neutral.
Ще інший спосіб, який ми можемо використовувати, це означає, що через аналіз масових засобів інформації, використовуючи мовні процеси, мову. Тобто, тому що ми маємо дуже багато інформації через Твіттер, через Телеграм, ми користуємося на сьогоднішній день. І коли люди текстують, пишуть, мова включає емоційні свої засоби, коли люди виражені, як люди себе виражають через емоції. І по цій причині по цій причині Телеграм, це, як ми бачимо на цій статенті, це є ап вибори, і як люди комунікують між собою.
And so here are other examples, so how this kind of research was done before using textual data only. So as I said, I will be presenting two of different researches that I did. So first one is going to be more descriptive, the other one kind of related to event detection. And here is an example. For example, something like this was done with the Arab Twitter, so Arabic data set. So here is on the right, you can see it's a really great project. And so this one is related to actually event detection. So here the human rights violations were detected in Iraq. I mean, it just was something what I got inspired before using, creating my research. It's not, the really most important slide here, but just wanted to give the overview here. And the descriptive portion was really also common. Usually, for example, something like Palestinian-Israeli conflict is really looked through this lens. And again, Arab Spring.
Ми можемо подивитися, в чому я працюю, це приклади з інших досліджень. Палестинсько-ізраїльський конфлікт і арабська весна. Ви можете побачити на посередині.
Okay, so here is finally my first study. So when I figured that actually Telegram creates lots of data, and some of them just recently, some of the posts are coming directly from the battlefield, I decided that we should study this data. We can definitely learn something and see whether it can be useful at some point. So for my first study, it was just, really preliminary first study. We collected 21 Telegram channels. We were trying to collect, equal amount of perspectives. For example, half of the, or close to half, we found channels that are supporting a Ukrainian side, and we found around half of that were pro-Russian.
Що цікаво, що коли ми взяли Telegram, ми десь було 21 каналів, ми взяли інформацію з 21 каналів по Телеграму. Ми потім побачили, що є різний розмір, різна інформація подавалася з різних перспектив. І, що цікаво, 50% з того було про-рашен, проросійськими.
Yeah, so it's not that it happened like this. We chose it so that we could see, equally how text is different from either side. It's not like by chance. We wanted to make sure that we have both sides to see whether we can learn something while we are comparing those sides. So, and also we split the data set on the before war and after war. So obviously we can kind of be not entirely agree with each other what's the beginning of war, but for this particular research, we took it as February 24th. So we divided our data before February 24th and after.
Ага, і з того всього, що ми зробили, ми інформацію, ми намагалися зробити якби рівнозначно з двох перспектив, і ми також цю інформацію розділили до війни, до 24 лютого, і після війни. Цю інформацію, щоб ми могли її порівняти.
Yeah, and we divided the data set before war and after war.
Ми поділили її до війни і після війни.
Yeah, and then we started to study, these portions of data before and after and see what can be compared and what can be, find similar or different. So, for example, first step here, just preliminary, we measured the sentiment score. So measuring sentiment score is a very common technique in natural language processing. And here we found something interesting. For example, the level of negativity kind of dropped after the war started, and some of the explanations that we were thinking, we did not find exact explanation, but we thought it's an interesting change, and we figured that more information were about facts rather than emotions. So yeah.
Ми виміряли сентимент скор, це виходить сентимент шкала, і що ми визначили негативний сентимент, він трошечки впав після того, як почалася війна.
Okay, and so this is another thing that we decided to measure and compare. So again, in natural language processing, we have something like a bigram trigram analysis. So basically, it's very simple. It's what we do. We're trying to find what's the most commonly used word phrases that contain either 2 or 3 words. And here it's interesting because we can look at the first table that contain all the most frequent phrases before war and after war.
Ви можете порівняти, які фрази випливали до війни і які фрази випливали після війни. Що ми частіше зустрічалися на наших новинах.
Yeah, and so I think even from this slide, we can see that even without actually reading all the messages, we can use algorithms to derive, for example, this kind of features, and we can see the tendency, right? So you can either read in Russian or see in English translations here, but we can see that there is a clearly development of something, right? So before war, we see that the most frequent words were, some of the words like this, like bad news, LNR, DNR, against Russia, assurance of safety around Ukraine. And after that, you can see again this list where, DoD Russia, which is a Department of Defense, against Russia, peaceful civilians. This particular one kind of took my attention here. Military actions and sanctions against.
Ми можемо порівняти, як мінялися ці фрази до війни і після війни, тому що ми найчастіше вжили. До війни це було погані новини, ЛНР, ДНР, проти Росії, assurance, гарантії безпеки. А після того це получалося проти Росії, мирні жителі, військові дії, санкції проти, оце найчастіше, яке використовується в інформаційному просторі.
And this kind of textual analysis has many other aspects. So after that, we were trying to see what are the most common nouns, common verbs, etc. So just to save time, I probably will not read them all, but I can just describe what we did. And again, here is something similar that we can see that using AI algorithm, we do not really, it really helps to draw some conclusions or to understand that there is, some some events are going on that we need to take a look. But this kind of steps helps altogether to collect the data and create some warnings, maybe for a human who is monitoring the AI model or governments.
Ага, ну тим часом, щоб зараз нас немає можливості розказати кожен з цих термінів особисто, але це ми можемо використовувати оце, бачити, як міняються ці слова, і ми можемо це моніторити. Це дієслова, іменники, прикметники, ви можете бачити на екрані.
This is just a comparison. So the previous list of words was before war, and here is after war. Again, we can just see the clear switch, and we clearly, in terms of just this particular step, we can see that there is an event that happened in between. Again, just to save time, I'm not going to go through the words. I'm pretty sure you probably can see the slides and can look through it. So the next step here is, again, just something similar, but a little bit different approach. So it's called keywords in context. So basically what we did here, we wanted to see which words most commonly occur around word Russia and around word Ukraine. So again, it's just one of the steps that we did, and here you could see the results.
Ключові слова, ми можемо бачити, які ключові слова використовувалися в російському просторі і в українському просторі. Можете бачити.
Yeah, so again, it is kind of interesting, right? So around Russia, we would see, day, council, accusation, security, TV channel, word, billion. And with Ukraine, we would say, again, days, intelligence, name, million, equipment, stage, security, which, again, as I mentioned before, all of the steps together helping us to understand that there is an event that is happening in between. And again, one more step that we did here. Yeah, I'm sorry, maybe I'm giving too much technical kind of description here, but just really quickly, I'm trying to describe that. Another step that is also very common in natural language processing is topic modeling. So basically, what topic modeling is that we take a lot of textual data and trying to use the AI to extract what are the most common theme that are discussed within this text. And here again, you can see the difference of those topics that were discussed before war and after the war started.
Ага, з цього слайду ми можемо побачити, який більш та тема до війни була така відома і після війни. Ви можете бачити, як мінялися у новинах ці теми у нас.
Yeah, so as I said, some of them may look like obvious for us as human, but when you think about this, all of this can be extracted and done without reading, thousands of those messages and just providing with this. So I'm just trying to explain how is that useful and how all of this step together can really lead to useful tools.
Бачите, як воно мінялося, які засоби ми використовуємо для боротьби.
It's the same what I was trying to say before, that even without reading those messages, just do you see how much information we can derive just by looking at those extracted a portion, like really fraction of the massive amount of data that we processed. So this was first study. The first study was just descriptive, where we actually look at all of those features and understood, yeah, the data is really interesting and we can probably do something even more useful with it.
Зараз, чи ви бачите, скільки ми можемо взяти з того, навіть взагалі перечитуючи новини, то як мінялася ця інформація на початку, як мінявся наратив і в кінці. Навіть не читають.
So, and from, just looking at the data and seeing everything what's mentioned, I thought, well, this is really interesting because because it's first full-size war with during the age of social media. If we will not take Arab Springs, which was not actually a full-size war, right? This is it's at least considered first an unprecedented situation here. So therefore, some posts, can come directly from battlefield. I'm pretty sure many of you saw those kind of really terrifying posts and channels where you can see pictures and images and videos directly from active war. So of course, having so much data that is coming directly from the source is very valuable for us as researcher.
So you want me to translate like this table, or you want? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
You want me to translate this table, what is here, or like?
No, I just talk about my motivation, but first portion, then I will talk about second. I mean, I can about the whole slide if you prefer.
It's okay.
Okay, then I will continue. So, as I said, because we could see all of these, unprecedented pictures and images and videos that are coming directly from, really violent events. We should do something with it. And first of all, detecting and documenting occurrences of human rights violations and or war crimes is really important in order to keep responsible people accountable in the future, right? So one thing to do is to use AI on this data set to try to identify whether we actually can see clear violation of human rights and whether we can capture that and save, so that in the future we can use that data for punishing people who are wrong in this situation, right? And this table is just an example of, pretty sure if most people are from Ukraine, then you're familiar with those kind of posts, but maybe some less familiar, you can see the examples.
Що ми можемо побачити, це на початку, коли ми бачили, дуже багато телеграм був переповнений такими, що ми бачите на лівій стороні, ми можемо ці всі жахливі новини. І що ми хочемо сказати, що ми використовуємо також штучну інтелігенцію, штучний розум для того, щоб визначити також і крайні ці погані крайні, виходить, ці всі, що проти ці злодійства проти людства, якраз за допомогою штучної інтелігенції, цього штучного розуму, що нам допомагає.
So yeah, then I will talk about this research that we decided to actually build a model, AI model that will go and do that. Will go and try to identify instance of human rights violation and show it to us. So basically for that task, we collected way more data. If you remember, for the previous just preliminary study, we had 21 channels. Here we gathered around 100 channels that covered war or politics in the area.
Ага, в попередньому цьому дослідженні ми використали тільки 21 канал. В цьому випадку ми використали більше 100 каналів, які говорив про війну і про політику.
And after that, after we discussed all kind of available and existing human rights violations, we figured that probably the 4 major types of human rights violations that are related to war and to maybe war crimes and to war situation could be the following 4. Those are killing of civilians, destroying civil objects, building infrastructure, torture, rape, execution, and mistreatment of prisoners. So those were the 4 categories that we were trying to teach our model to identify.
Ага, то ми намагаємося вчити нашу модель. Ми визначили, ми сфокусувалися, привернули увагу до 4 таких, то, що відбувалося violation, порушень. Це вбивство цивільного населення, коли розрушалися будинки, інфраструктура, потім є torture, це коли над людьми іздівательства, потім вбивства, і як неправильно поводилося з полоненими. Неправильне поводження, це містичне.
And so in our field, in order to train this model, what we need to do, we have to manually label a fraction of the data. So basically I created a data set in the system, a special system that looks like here, like this one. And myself and other people that I could find that could speak both Russian and Ukrainian, because you know, most of the channels are coming from either Russian speaking or Ukrainian speaking authors, I assume. And we asked those people who were annotating to provide basically two labels. So the first one, we would ask, what do you think? Like, is that text sided more with pro-Russian, pro-Ukrainian side, or it could be neutral? In the fourth label, I probably should change name, called garbage, means if it's just some kind of commercial or advertising in Telegram that we don't want our model even to see. And the second label, which is even more important here, is we ask to identify type of human rights violations inside of the text itself. Like here, for example, we can see that it was marked подтверждено прямое попадение снаряда в жилой дом по улице Рыбалка 62, was marked here as a civil object destruction. So as I said before, it's what we are trying to mark. Of course, it's not very precise, but even if there is a hint that it could be a human rights violation, we want this data to be kind of marked.
Для цього ми це зробили, якби вручну, ми це зробили, ми manually label data, ми це все порозділили в категорії в тексті, і також і ми шукали також про українські, про російські, ми це розділили на категорії. І друга категорія була human rights violation, ці порушення проти людяності, проти прав людини. Ви тут можете бачити маленький приклад на низі, як він це застосовувався в тексті.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to make sure that this portion is really the most time consuming. So to do the manual labeling for data, we labeled more than 4,000 posts, and some posts are short as this one, but some of them are really way longer. So this took quite a while. So I guess we hope that we can share this data set with other researchers so that they can also do some possible other approaches to research here.
В нашому випадку це я хотіла сказати, що це є, нам прийшлося пройти через 4000 постів, то що було виставлено в Телеграмі, і це дуже займає багато часу в даному випадку.
Yeah. And although I said it's 100 channels, of course, we just, physically would not be able to label all of them manually. So obviously we just randomly pick a certain amount, a fixed amount from each of the channel, then make it randomized, and then we label it.
Ми якби запускали загальну базу даних, і потім ми їх характеризували. Але це взагалі це дослідження займає дуже багато часу, дуже скрупульозно.
And so, and finally, we trained a neural network. It's a separate model called BERT, but it's just too technical here, I guess, that was able to predict with the quite reliable accuracy the occurrence of human rights violation on a Telegram post. So on this stage of this research, what we could achieve is whether there is a human rights violation or not. So far we could not distinguish between kind, but at least we already now can identify the occurrence, possible occurrence of human rights violation. So from here, we will have more steps that we are planning to do. So first of all, the current neural network that we have is not it was not specifically trained for Russian and Ukraine data, so particularly in Ukrainian. So we do have some models for Russian, but I want to work more on the Ukrainian neural network models. So that's going to be next step. We also want to distinguish, right? So since we do have that separation on the 4 different human rights violations, we want eventually the final model would be able to distinguish between the 4. And also it would be interesting to look at if there is a difference in reporting human rights violations from Russian side and from Ukrainian side, right? So, and if it's different, you know, we can suspect it may be different, then how is it different? And finally, the kind of final goal here, or what we would hope to see in the end, is some kind of application tool that can do all of this on automatic base, so that we could create this monitoring platform that could see and collect and document all of that occurrences of human rights violations, so that in the future that they could be used to punish people, you know, who were responsible for them.
Так, дивлячись на те, що ми змогли зробити, ми змогли цей, то, що BERT, це інформаційно-неврологічний нетворк, він може як передбачити з великою якби точністю occurrence human rights violation, випадків порушень проти людяності у телеграмних постах. Що це дає? Що це дасть? Тому що це можна буде це зробити більше в автоматичному режимі, це буде працювати. І тому що зараз ми якби і це зараз ми фокусуємося на тому, щоб більше працювати над, тому що це більше у нас російського є, якби в російській пості виявляє, але ми хочемо зосередитися більше, щоб було в українських постах, щоб допомагати українцям.
Yeah. And now final portion of that, as I said before, so what, right? I described everything, what we did, what we plan to do, and you know, so what? One of the questions that I used to receive when I describe what I do, can we really rely on Telegram post, right? Telegram available to everybody. Everybody can write anything they want here. True. That is definitely true. But we can do some, you know, extra steps here. For example, if we see that these similar reports are coming from multiple sources, in particular, if those sources from different sites, right? We can assume that it is probably or more likely to be true. Imagine, like, if there is a mention of a certain event, let's say Bucha, right, coming from, you know, a dozen of channels, or maybe not only on Telegram, somewhere on Twitter as well, then okay, it should be somehow marked or flagged so that we can go investigate whether it's true. So yes, by default, we could not rely, but also, yes, we could use this information as a, you know, a pointer or as a sign to start a further investigation. And finally, the second, so what point here, what can we do with all of that? Okay, we extracted those words, we built that model. As I said, final goal, as I see possibly being here, is that we can build that tool that would be totally automated and that can actually, you know, collect those instances of human rights violations or possible human rights violations, and try to report those to maybe first NGOs or maybe to government agencies. You know, these records, if we have enough records of certain human rights violations, especially during war, it can be a base for, you know, war crime at some point. And of course, to make sure that all the wrongdoers, right, the people who actually committed those crimes, are punished, we have to have evidence, right? And this tool could be one of the steps towards having more evidence, so that the, you know, wrong people who did wrong choices would be would have, you know, a trial and would have actual evidence of what they did. And I argue that that will promote future peace, because, you know, all other dictators may see that you know, there is actual punishment, there is actual accountability is being collected.
Yeah. Все, що ми можемо бачити, ми хочемо створити, мати такий засіб, який це все буде робити автоматично, і щоб ми могли визначити, мати випадки human rights relations, випадки людських прав, і щоб для того, щоб ми могли наказати, щоб в майбутньому наказати тих, хто напав на Україну, і всі ці країни, всі ці їхні правопорушення були задокументовані, і звертатися, якби сказати, інформувати негаверментські організації, гаверменти про ці всі правопорушення.
Yes. That's it. Thank you so much. If there is any comments, suggestions, or questions, here is my email. And thank you again for having me. Yeah, that's it.
Дуже гарно дякуємо.
Thank you so much, Polly. If anybody has any questions, anything that came up during the presentation that you wanted more highlight on it, more information on it, we could go into that section right now.
У вас якісь такі запитання, хтось щось хотів би висказати по цьому поводу дезінформації, може якісь
Okay.
But can you hear me?
Polly, can you hear us?
No, I cannot hear you very well. I can hear very, very lightly.
Maybe you can see the
Yeah, you can come closer too.
It was now?
Is it okay now?
Yeah, yes, better.
Better. Okay, first of all, thank you for this presentation. I think you do very noble underdoing. We live in age of new challenges, and these challenges require new approaches, and this artificial intelligence platform can be a game changer. But I'm real curious, when you performed a search of the sources, did you use only sources with formal language or plain language, or did you also use sources that heavily employed vernacular? What do I mean by that? From what I can also read on Telegram channels, often Russians use not just plain language; they use a specific vernacular that they describe things, including war crimes. For example, they often refer to killing of Ukrainians like "we were chopping pork" or "we were sowing Paul," and so on and so on. Did you also took it in your account during your research, or you just like omitted it?
So I think I missed your first question, but let me start from the second one. It's a very good point. In fact, I was considering adding that too, but unfortunately, this portion require quite a large separate model training. We call it a little bit like sarcasm detection. It's not exactly in this case, but some misuse of different name callings, etc. It can be done. There is technology for that. It just was not done in this particular stage level of this project. But I totally agree. I did notice that too, obviously, and that could be a portion of it. As I said, it's just it would require separate manual labeling for this particular task. Basically, it would take similar amount of time as if what I do right now. So yes, it's a great comment, and at some point we will do it. No, we haven't done it yet. Okay. And sorry, yeah, what was your first question? Not sure.
No, it's one question. It's just a little bit. It was like, yeah, but I think it's my just opinion. But you should focus on this like really hard, because I swear to you, 98% of those channels use vernacular. They don't use.
I'm sorry. They use what?
Vernacular. It's simple tone, they use name calling, they use
right
all other things. And
yes.
If you use those words, you can find many things: terrible, super terrible. Basically, it's their language. It's like
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, and in the end of the day, I think it's one of these crucial problems. It's very hard for non-native speakers like Russian or Ukrainian or people who just speak English or they don't know about this deepness of Russian or Ukrainian to understand this.
Yeah.
It's a great mission. The only good thing is that people who post that on Telegram, they're that full-hearted embracing. They don't care. They just go.
Yeah. But this is where neural networks is really useful, even though it's really hard, for example, for somebody who speaks English, but they just learn Russian or Ukrainian to get exactly those kind of stuff that you're talking about. But we actually can train the model to identify those small differences. So this is possible. In fact, when we work with language, for example, we can derive so many other features. We can derive almost, which grade of school this person last attended, or what's the social economic status of this person, or what is like general socioeconomic class or something like this. So there are other things that can be done, but as I said, this is just the first step. Those techniques exist, but again, they will entail some more data being labeled. And this is really, in fact, all of this project, majority of time was spent on data collection, cleaning, and labeling. I would say 80%. The rest was just 20%. But I totally agree that this is a good point, and this definitely would help to improve the model even better.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating that you can determine a person's background by only analyzing the style and writing. Yeah, the only thing that I also would to add is this: there are also a lot of channels specifically created by Russian speakers or influencers that masquerade like Ukrainian.
Right.
And have you considered also to note that because I'm Ukrainian speaker, I can do almost very easy just distinguish that it was like Google Translate or person speaks fascinately clean Ukrainian, like not just it's proper Ukrainian, it's the highest, neatest grade, the grade that would be used like by actors, for example, in theaters. So have you also considered to make some sort of, I don't know, filters in to distinguish the fake channels, or it's for future?
So right now we do not have that on our agenda, because our final goal is just to document human rights violations for the future accountability. But what you're saying is also very interesting. This could be done. So other kind of future projects that I had in mind, we're not working on that yet, but we were thinking about creating some score of reliability of a particular channel, because sometimes you have so many channels, which one you should read, and why this and not that one. It's not an easy task. In fact, when we were discussing this with my research group, we figured it's actually quite complicated to do. But what you said could be one step that could be helpful to do that. So, by the way, if you would not mind and have time, could you send me some examples of the channels that you may be aware?
Oh, yeah, I'm delighted. Many of them.
That would be really useful. What was your name again?
Glad.
Vlad. Okay, yeah, Vlad, thank you so much. Yeah, if you could do it, I would really be thankful. Great.
One question?
Yes,
Yeah, I just need to close it. My question, because I was how your organization fighting against Russia Today, all these Russian channels like bots, like Fabric of Prigozhin, maybe you learn about this, because those bots, how you fighting against this? Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not finding them in any way. I'm just a neutral researcher from the public university at the US. So this is kind of a different area. So it definitely, the same techniques that I'm using in my approach can be used for that goal, but it's kind of a different direction. So basically, my pure goal here is I see many, really violent events that need to be documented, because, I also noticed even those channels that I found and collected data, some of them are gone, some of them were, deleted. But if the human rights violation was mentioned there, we should find a way document it so that it would be stored somewhere for the future trial, hopefully. But what you said, yeah, I agree that it is important, and some of the portions of what I do could be incorporated for that goal. But you know what? Now that I thought more about this, I believe there is some research was done on that. There is a data set that was collected in Russian, and the models were trained to identify trolls.
Yeah.
I think it started when it was the intervention in the president election here in 2016. I believe many researchers here were trying to tackle this issue, because of course for US it was a big deal. And as far as I know, there are lots of attempts to detect those Russian trolls.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, one last one.
I'm sorry, I cannot really hear well.
Yes, probably okay.
We actually,
But Karina, you translate for them.
Oh, that's fine. I understand Ukrainian.
Okay. Hello.
Hello. Добрый день.
Если искусственный интеллект рассматривает 4000 постов из Телеграма, вы говорили, какой результат вы ожидали получить? То есть вам не интересно было, сколько было букв О, сколько было букв А, вам интересен был результат.
То есть вы спрашиваете, вы спрашиваете, как мы оцениваем, насколько модель работает, да? Как мы оцениваем
Could you hold on so that Karina can translate for all of us?
Yeah,
in English?
You asking how this model, because he asking about this 4,000 words, how they will detect in this 4,000 words artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And Polina is asking question like more particular what he means.
Okay, go ahead.
Это ваш вопрос или нет? Или я неправильно поняла вас?
Нет, это перевели мой вопрос к вам.
Okay, so I don't know, should I answer in English or in Russian? Which one is more convenient?
Пойдем украинский, а потом на английский перейдем.
Добро.
Ну, или на русский, но...
В общем, да, во-первых, 4000 это только первоначальное число для теста. То есть, конечно, как я сказала, у нас есть 100 каналов, и там все вместе будет больше, чем 1 миллион. Но для этого нам нужно будет совершенно другие компьютеры. То есть пока что мы тестируем на этом. Дальше, как мы определяем, в принципе, везде в искусственном интеллекте, как мы определяем конкретно в работе с текстом, в классификации текста, как мы измеряем, хорошо модель работает или нет. То есть есть такое как статистический индекс F1, я думаю, по-русски так, наверное, называется. Вот, и в принципе, что мы пытаемся посмотреть, мы сравниваем, берем другую модель и берем, например, с чем я сравнивала. Я взяла просто, как это по-русски, в общем, слова, которые мы бы ассоциировали с нарушением прав человека, ну, например, я не знаю, убийство, изнасилование и так далее. То есть мы взяли вот те слова и попытались просто, окей, если мы просто попытаемся искать те слова, выбрать те слова, и если мы только используем это, будет ли будет ли результат уже достаточно хорош, либо нет. И оказалось, что, используя нейронную сеть, на самом деле результаты будут лучше. Потому что, знаете, иногда, например, слово убийство используется, но на самом деле это не совсем, не в том контексте, это не совсем нарушение прав человека. Ну, потому что нейронная сеть, она настолько много чему учится, пока она тренируется, боже мой, я не очень хорошо это объясняю, наверное, но что она может уловить вот эти зависимости между словами, и в итоге конечная модель смогла показать конечный результат лучше, чем вот, допустим, такой вот подход, как я описала раньше.
Понятно, спасибо.
Спасибо за вопрос.
Okay, so Paulina, can you translate that to English for some of us?
Oh, yes, sure. Basically, the question was, how do we measure that the model actually works, and what was the goal for final performance of this model? And also, are we using just 4,000 words? So, of course, 4,000 words is not like a final goal. As I said, we have 100 channels that we collected. Together, it's more than 1 million posts in total. But for now, because we need to account for computational power that we have right now. We're just using that sample, but the sample was randomized, so it is statistically, like it's scientific approach, it's totally fine. So how do we compare whether our performance is actually reasonable? So usually what we do in machine learning, in artificial intelligence, we take some other approaches that can be done, for example, using simpler model, or maybe using just humans, or maybe just a regular chance, and see whether in comparison to those approaches, our model performs better. So basically what I compared here, in addition to some other neural networks, we extracted keywords, basically keywords that we as human would expect would be associated with human rights violations. For example, killings, maybe civilians, maybe rape, maybe tortures. So something what we would as human we would expect, appearing in instances of human rights violations. And so then we basically just looked into the data. Okay, give me all the sentences that have these words. And then we saw, okay, maybe this approach would be enough to capture all the human rights violations, or at least majority. So what happened is actually a neural network performs better. Why? Because neural network can identify some connections, relations between the words. For example, not all sentences that include word killing would necessarily related to human rights violations, right? It's war afterwards. Of course, soldiers are killing soldiers, right? It's not a human rights violation per se. But in other occurrence, it could be absolutely be related to human rights violation. So the neural network was able to perform better because of this kind of connection that it can learn in between the words, even words that are nearby or the words that are on longer distance.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. So we'll move on to the next session of. Thank you so much, Polly. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the next session of.
Thank you. I hope the war will be over soon.